Every successful person got there by going through tough times. Success is a hard-ass teacher who likes to knock you around along that journey. You know, it takes real guts to not give up and keep going. We'll hear stories about failures and how these leaders flip the script to create success. I'm John Schultz. Join me and let's discover how success is never really overnight. There we go. So welcome to the John Schultz podcast. I have a team that I've loved my entire life, my family, my father. I've grown up watching the Yankees my whole life. We have Aaron Boone. I don't have to introduce him, but I'm going to. He's the manager of the New York Yankees. We all know that. He was a baseball analyst at CNN for a while. Professional baseball player from 1997 to 2009. Baseball family dynasty. And still in it, still killing it. And we love that he's our coach, being a Yankees fan myself. So I'm very excited to have you on. And thanks for doing this.
Yeah, it's good to be on with you and looking forward to chopping it up a little bit here.
Yeah, let's chop it up. All right. So listen, I grew up in a real estate family. I would down the street with my father, he'd be pointing at buildings where most people would be looking for candy stores or things that like normal little kids do. But listen, I'm in real estate now and it's like in my DNA. And I know you have a huge dynasty in baseball. So was there ever any chance you would not pursue a professional baseball career? Like when you ask people when they're growing up, what do you want to be? An astronaut, a baseball player? Obviously, you had a chance. Was that always in your mind?
Yes. So, and my answer from the time I was a little kid was, Major League Baseball player or Major League athlete. And at the time, you're probably a little naive. You realize how hard it is to get there and certainly to stay there. But, you realize a lot of things have to happen along the way. Sometimes that can be out of your control a little bit. So I just naively, from the time I was a little kid, that was my dream. And, I played football, basketball, and baseball all the way through my senior year in high school. Could have played all them in college at different levels. At that point, I kind of figured my path to the major leagues was going to be in baseball. So I was fortunate enough to get to go to USC for college. Great school, great program, and chase my dream. And it's been a remarkable ride. But I think, when I was a kid, from the time I was a baby, my dad was in the big leagues, and my brothers and I were very fortunate in that he drug us to work with him a lot, and we're around great players and great teams, and in that environment. You say it's in your DNA. It absolutely is. It's in my blood. It's all I know. So I was going to hundreds of games and playing dozens of others from the time I was a little kid. And, to say baseball's in the blood because of my family is a big reason why.
Yeah. For real, it's truly a cool story. So did you ever end up in a place you shouldn't have ended up when you were a little kid, like in the locker room, like, stuck in a locker, like something like stupid that we wouldn't know?
So my older brother, Brett, and I, we actually, back in the 70s and 80s, it's a little different than it is now in that, we got to do everything. Like we're almost at the ballpark every single day with my dad. Brett and I actually shared our own locker in Veteran Stadium in the Phillies clubhouse, and would shag every day, would be there for the game, would watch the game, maybe bat boy, maybe watching the game underneath with the grounds crew. We were able to do so many good things. And as far as being somewhere where you shouldn't have been, I think part of the reason, and one of the things you kind of had to learn and feel your way, is you kind of had to know how to disappear, know how to not bother players. You need to have a feel of being around them. And I think my brother and I probably demonstrated that at a pretty young age and allowed us to do a lot of really cool things with our dad at the ballpark because we knew how to act. We knew how to disappear. We knew how to, when it was okay for us to be around. And that was something that you learned and something that you lived. And I'm grateful that, you know, I had that childhood, because I tell people all the time I had the greatest childhood ever, you know.
Oh,
Being around, you know, Hall of Fame players, all-star players. My dad played on so many great teams from the time and he played in the big leagues from the time I was born till my senior year in high school. So it's all I really knew, but it was an amazing way to grow up.
Little baseball etiquette. I mean, like, so
Yeah.
it's so nice that you were so close with your brother. One question would be like, how'd you know what position? I mean, because like you would think you want to follow, right? Like maybe do what your father was. Like, how did you figure out what position you were good at? Did you play all the positions? What was your process through honing Aaron Boone as the baseball player?
Yeah, we were middle infielders. I mean, I think it kind of picks you. You know, I think when you're a kid and you're playing little league, you know, usually the most athletic kids, you know, play shortstop. I'm grateful that he took us along for the ride. But one thing he didn't want me to do, you know, coming up as a kid and then even into high school and stuff, was he didn't want us to catch, believe it or not. If at some point I switched to catcher, you know, in college or as a pro, that's one thing. But he wanted us to play in the middle of the diamond. It's probably like a offensive lineman wanting his son to be a quarterback instead of,
well, listen,
you know, being
also I'm sure he didn't want to be, you know, then you'd have to be compared to your dad, right? I mean, at the position. So like, why go through that, you know? And
I just think he felt like we were athletic enough to not have to get beat up behind the plate.
You know, I was a catcher, so I was on the Orioles in Little League, and
oh wow, cool.
That was my, like, I need to be doing something at all times, so it was the perfect position for me. But yeah, I used to get destroyed some games, you know, with foul balls and, you know. But when you're that young, you don't get aches and pains. It's just you know, you get hit with balls, that hurts. But it was fun. So here you are living through baseball your entire life, storybook, you know, sort of cool thing. You get your, you know, call up to the major leagues the first time. I mean, I would think, you know, if you didn't have that family, I could see how that's like the craziest feeling on the planet. But being that you have such a baseball dynasty within your family, how was that feeling? And, you know, what was the first thing you did? Who'd you call first? Like, what was your reaction?
Yeah, it's one of the greatest feelings in the world. You know, it's what you poured your life into and what you dreamed about, and it's a dream come true. You know, truly getting that call or that you know, the manager calling you in the office in Indianapolis in AAA and telling you you're going to the big leagues. Like, and I think you're flooded with a lot of emotions of, you know, all the people that have not only touched your life but touched your baseball journey. There's this gratitude you have towards so many people, and you know, so many people, you know, are going to share in this moment, or share in this time of you getting called up to the big league. So I think it's a source of pride for, you know, not only yourself but all the people that, you know, probably feel like they had a role in you getting there. And frankly, that is a long list. You know, you don't get there all by yourself. There's a lot of teachers and coaches and mentors and family members and people that were naysayers, you know, everything that play a role in you, you know, getting to the big leagues. You know, I think there was probably a little less awe to it, for me, being around it my whole life, but it didn't make it any less amazing and emotional when you do get that call.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, so you know, I said, so you get there, right? And now you got to prove it. Right? I say, like, I'm in real estate, so I can buy a building, but anyone can buy a building. It's what you do with it after you get it, right? How do you execute? So how was it for the first 2-3 years? Like, what did you, I mean, because like you said at the beginning, and I think people don't realize, forget like just business, sports, it's so hard to get there. I mean, so once you're there, then keeping yourself there has got to be like a brutal mindset thing. So how do you prepare your mindset once you're there? And what did you see some of your ups and downs over the first 3 to 5 years as a professional baseball player?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to, you know, there are ups and downs, and there are continuing to kind of graduate and develop and kind of conquer different levels and different parts of the career that allow you to stick. Because I would tell you, in high school and college and in the minor leagues coming up, I probably played with, against, and leapfrog maybe guys that were more talented. So talent obviously plays a huge role in becoming a major league athlete, but it's also the ability to make real adjustments and really continue to develop your craft and be able to survive the mental game and the emotional game, because it can be stressful and tolling, and everyone's not necessarily cut out for it. I got that call the first time. I was actually only up for about a week or 10 days the first time, and then I got sent back down and got called up at the end of the year. And then the following season, I played half a year in the big leagues. So I was still up and down a little. And then in '99, from then on, I was always in the big leagues. But there's adjustments that you've got to be able to make, or the game will swallow you whole. The game will eat you alive. So you've got to constantly be able to make adjustments, not only if you're going to get to the big leagues, but certainly if you're going to survive and have a long career in the big leagues. You've got to be able to make adjustments, because there's always people, that are coming for your job, or more and younger talent always, cycling through the system that's pushing their way up. So you've got to be able to, the mental side of the game becomes very important, if you're going to, make a career out of it at the big league level.
Would you say today it's as up and down maybe as it was in the past? Has things changed on how players are signed today? There's so much more. The whole thing feels like it's a different animal.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it's changed much in that regards as far as career standpoint. The game has certainly changed. I would say it's become a lot more physical, in that there's so much power from a pitching standpoint, from a velocity, so I do think it's harder to have like real elite longevity. I think those players are maybe fewer and far between now than they were even in my generation. Because I think, to be a 35, 37, 40-year-old player, because of the physicality of the game, you've still got to be really physical. Yeah, you have the mental chops and those things that go with being the experience of being a big leaguer. But now I would say, it's a little harder as you get older, because of just how physical how physical the game has become.
Yeah, and I think that's throughout sports today, right? It's definitely all the, technology on how you work out and just how you keep yourself in a different level. So, okay, you're there, you're up and down, you had to prove yourself. What would you say your biggest career highs and lows were during your full career in baseball? Obviously you.
Yeah. I think, I dealt with a fair share of injuries in my career, some at the front end, some in the back end, in the middle. But I think, being an all-star in 2003, I feel like becoming a really good two-way player, defensively and offensively. My family has always taken a lot of pride in defense. My brother has multiple Gold Gloves. My dad has 7 Gold Gloves. So defense was always, something that was very important to us. And I think a reason why, my grandpa, my dad, my brother, and I were able to have long careers is because, we were able to do it on both sides of the ball to some degree. And that's usually something that can be a calling card, or something that can lend itself to longevity. Highs and lows. 2002 to me is a season in which I got off to such a bad start. For the first 2 months of the season, I was struggling so bad that, you question, can I even do this? And, professionally speaking, there were some really low lows in those first 2 months of the season where you're just getting it handed to you. You know, you're overmatched. And it can beat you up mentally and emotionally. And I remember being in about late May and really getting to a place of, you know, I talk to people and I talk to even our players sometimes when they're going through a tough stretch is you've got to have this level of, you know, you care so much about what you do, but sometimes that can get in your way a little bit because it can add to the tension and it can add to the pressure. And you've got to be able to, at the end of the day, for all the prep work you do physically, mentally, getting ready for an opponent, all that goes into it. Once you go out there, you got to be able to just go play, and you got to be able to have fun playing the game of baseball. You got to do that. And when you're scuffling for a stretch, you know, for me at the time, it was a couple months where I was really struggling. You know, it's hard to let go of that. It's hard to not bring that into the game, and you want it so bad. You want to go do it so bad. You want to chase the results so bad, and that can get you into some trouble, you know.
Right.
And I truly got to a point, and I talked to even my players again sometimes about this, like, you can't chase after the result, especially in our game in baseball and as a hitter where it's a game of failure. Even when you're doing well, you're failing all the time, and you got to be able to deal with that. So there was a level that I got to as a player that season where it was, I called it my rock bottom, where I got to a point was, I'm not going to worry about this anymore. I'm not going to stress about it. I'm not going to carry this burden between the lines. I'm going to prepare my butt off. I'm going to try and be the best teammate I can be. And I'll be damned, I'm going to go out there at 7:00 and let the chips fall where they may. And I'm just going to play the game and not care about the results. You start chasing the results, you get yourself in trouble. Commit to the process, commit that all that goes into, and the results will be what they were. I was able to get to, it's one thing to say that too.
Right.
It's another thing to truly get there.
Believe
and
it,
I
right?
truly,
yeah.
I got to that point where I didn't care anymore about the results. I really didn't. I was going to be ready to go. I was going to be prepared. And it really turned my season around. And I literally took off from there and finished that season, I think, with 32 stolen bases, 26 runs. And then I catapulted that into the 2003 season where, you know, I became an all-star for the first time. But it was a rock bottom place that actually ended up ultimately freeing me up and then allowing me to go out and have a couple of the best years of my career.
You know what's so cool about what you said, the lesson I just learned, and for you guys, it's harder because you're measured on everything. You know, people are watching you every night. In business, deals don't move that fast. Things don't move that fast. So you can, you know, machinate on it, but you're not being like looked at under a microscope every second of your week with so many games. So, and yeah. I like that you said the minute you cared about your team, like the minute you surrendered your own stuff and focused on just having fun and creating the action steps to do it, you did it.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
My friend tells me every now and then, a good friend of mine, you know, says, I'm not in the results business. I'm in the action business. And
so true.
You know, I try and live that. And hopefully the actions you're doing and all that you put into it put you in a position to ultimately have more successes than failures. And so I always say, you know, anytime something comes up that's not a result that we want, I'm like, hey, we're in the action business. And
the action business and the try business, right? If you don't try, you can't. It's the same thing. Like if I don't try to go create something new at one of our buildings or what we do, I'll never know whether that there was a result. There won't even be any results, right? It'll be sort of a non-issue. So
exactly.
So okay, and I get it, you know, but it's still like you want to do well. You want to, you know, progress as a person. You want your team to do well. And in sports, I think this may be higher than even business. How do you handle, like, it's such high stress, and stress is not good for us, right? There's good stress. There's some stress that drives us, but like the worry stress, the like not doing this, you know, not thinking you're good enough stress is not good. How as an athlete, and like, how did you develop this as a person to get through these high stress situations?
First of all, my faith, you know, I don't, not to say I don't go through stressful times, and there's, tension, and you want things, and it can be a lot of pressure, but um, I also have a perspective on it that this is my livelihood, and it really matters to me, and I pour a ton into it, but I have the perspective of it's not everything also, like there are more important things. And whether I'm in the highest of highs and things are going really well, or you're at the lowest of lows, I've always, one of the things I've had in my life is I've always had a pretty good, healthy perspective on things. And I think that's probably rooted in my faith. One of the things I used to do a lot, and I still do it to this day, is, when we're flying in the airplane, we're flying to another city or whatever. I may be in the midst of, as a player or as a manager, a great streak, things are going really well, or the opposite. It could be a really difficult time. I like to look out the window and I look down and I look at how massive the earth is, and look down there, and whether I'm digging myself at this particular point or really at a low point, it's like I'm not that big in the grand scheme of things. So I try and keep that perspective, especially in the course of what sometimes can be a stressful, pressure-filled season.
Well, you're humble. You got humility. I think that's one of the most important things in any profession.
This game will humble you.
Yeah. Listen, every day it's humbling you. All right. So you had an unbelievable career. We all, we all know that. I told you I have that picture of you yelling at the umpire, Coach Boone now. Now we're at Coach Boone. We had a little CN for a while, but now we're Coach Boone. So what's the hardest part of your job? First of all, transferring yourself from player to coach. I'm sure you could bring some great nuggets being on the other side. Like I always find in any profession, like if I'm in a restaurant, I'm washing the dishes all the way, knowing all the things on both sides is a good thing, like what other people feel. But today, being the coach that you are, what would you say the hardest part of your job is? And actually, what do you like most about your job today?
Yeah, I'd say the hardest part is, we have a 26-man roster, coaching staff, support staff, clubhouse staff, so you're, I guess, living with and responsible and for, 60, 70 people every day, for 8 months, as we start in spring training on through the end of the season, you're so they become very close family members. I would say the difficult part is the things that inevitably come across the desk that may or may not have anything to do with baseball, but have to do with real people and their lives and things that they're going through, both positive and negative, or things, and that can spill into the team and the culture you're trying to create. So it's trying to navigate things, the unexpected that inevitably comes across your desk, on a weekly basis, and how you handle that, how you deal with that, and without hopefully affecting what you hope is a very strong culture that you create in your clubhouse, in your world. I would say that's the hardest thing. So those unexpected things. The best part is I've been fortunate enough to love who I get to work with. So whether it's people in the front office, coaches and staff members that I've had the pleasure of working with and alongside of, and then my players. I have players that some that I've, have been with me every single year, some that are new this year or new last year, whatever. And I've loved the relationships I've been able to develop with them. I've loved the purpose and all that we get to play for. We're playing for a lot. There's a lot on the line.
Yeah.
And when you're doing it with people that you really care about, that's a lot of fun. So I would say game time, there's nothing like 7:00 game. And now all the preparation, all that goes into it, all that you deal with, as a team, as a group throughout the day, throughout the season. Now we get into game time, and it's like nothing better than competing on the biggest stage at the highest level with a lot on the line.
With great fans, by the way.
Yeah. And that's why you do it.
Yeah.
That's a competitive fire and spirit, and, with a lot on the line. I love that.
Lots of adrenaline floating around, I'm sure, which is good.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay. So, and you mentioned the players as obviously integral as what you like, but what would you say you look for in a player? Like, what are the key characteristics, right? I mean, there's so much talent out there. In any business, we all have to think the same way for positions in our companies. And what would you say you look for as a coach?
All right. So talent aside, obviously that's
you have to have
those judgments. So I'm looking for consistency. And one of the things I try to provide from my chair and my seat is, if you were to drop in on us at any point in the year, or our player were to walk by my office and the doors open, that no matter what's going on in our season or our lives, so we're in the middle of the best season of our life, we're in the middle of the toughest season, we're dealing with something off the field that's amazing, we're dealing with something that's really we're struggling with off the season. Hopefully from my chair and from our players, there's an emotional consistency that people can always count on. And I'm always looking for that in people. But I also want them to very much be themselves, right? So, we're not looking for a cookie cutter person. I want somebody that is free to be themselves and who they are and express themselves, but that they bring an energy and a consistency in who they are each and every day. And that's one thing that I really look for and trying to emulate.
So that's like authenticity, right? Pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you want, right? The
authenticity, consistency, and an energy that I expect you to bring each and every day.
All right. So obviously that's what you're looking for. Like in businesses, we all have bad quarters, right? I mean, ups and downs, sideways, sometimes you think it's over at certain points to certain deals, but so how did you keep the team together in August? I mean, we had that early, crazy, unbelievable run. You had Judge, doing his thing for the home run title. And then, boom, like how do you, because if those things are in your players, right, at least you have a chance. How do you get the culture to wrap around that moment?
Because we talk about it and live it every day. I'll address the whole group here of players at the first day of spring training. And, one of the things that we'll stress and talk about from day one is, I know a lot of highs are coming for us this year because we feel like we have a great team, and we've felt that way every year. So I know some good moments are coming and some great times, but I damn sure know that adversity is coming for us as well. And we need to be able to accept that and live in it and thrive in it when it does come. So we talk about it all the time. We live it all the time. And that's what I meant by, like, when I say, if we dropped you into our clubhouse at any point in the season, whether we won 10 in a row or whether we've just lost 6 out of 7 games and we're in a tough stretch like we were in August, we talk about, with our players a lot, like, I don't care how great a year you're having or we're having as a team. I promise you adversity's coming for us and is going to come knocking at some point. How do we handle that? And so we talk about it all the time. We're prepared for it. I feel like the leaders on our team do a really good job of being real consistent no matter what's going on in the season. And that's one thing, credit to our guys in that month where we really, the kind of the back end of July and in the month of August where it was a real struggle for us, there was no panic. There was no, there's certainly frustration. You want to perform, you want to win, but not much changed in who we were. It was like, okay, we're going to weather this storm. We'll get through it. We're dealing with some challenges from an injury standpoint. We got to deal with it. And I think because we talk about it all the time and live it, we're prepared to handle it. And credit to those guys for being able to right the ship through a tough stretch there.
Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, I was getting worried. I was like, thank God. But so what's your form of communication? Like, team meetings, individual meetings? Like is it structured based on the player personality? Like, how do you feel is the best way you as a coach can communicate to your team to keep the ugly vibes, the things that are coming for you, flowing properly?
A little bit of everything. There'll be an occasional, I address the team as a whole at the start of spring training and at the start of the season, at the start of the postseason. And then there'll probably be things that come up over the course of the year, whether I need to send a harsh message to the group, whether it's pick me up a little bit to the group. Those happen not a lot, but, every now and then throughout the season. And then I would say most of the communication I do is individual, or in smaller groups. It could be the casual conversations you have to the serious conversations you have, to the closing the door and let's talk about some things. And then also I'm not a micromanager. So I really empower my coaches. So I try, I'll communicate through them sometimes as well. It doesn't always necessarily have to be me directly, saying something to them. So maybe their position coach that I'll communicate through a little bit as well.
Got it. All right, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, and then I know you're very busy. You got maybe have practice after this, but so when you played, who was your favorite non-team player, and what did you admire about them? Like, what gave you inspiration when you were playing? Obviously, I'm sure you had a lot on your team. But
what do you mean non-team player?
Not on your team, like the teams that you played on, you may have admired certain players, but like, who did you admire that wasn't on your team, during your career? And what about it? Like, what drove you?
Yeah. All right. So kind of someone recent that's in the news now currently is Scott Rowland.
Okay.
So, we played at the same time or similar ages, played the same position. I feel like I might even won a Gold Glove or two had he not been in the league, because I view him as probably the greatest defensive third baseman ever. I had that much respect for how good he was defensively. Just the way he went about things, the consistency, how hard he played the game. There was a toughness, and because there's the position familiarity, we actually had a similar person in our life that influenced our game a lot in how the late John Vukovic, who really taught us some fundamental things about playing the position of third base that I know he taught Scott in Philadelphia, but he taught me as well. And so Roland and I's setup in our pre-pitch and how we got ready in the field to field the ball was almost identical, and it was because of John Vukovic. So Scott Rowland was always somebody that I admired the way he went about things, certainly his game, and just how well he played the position that I played.
And he drove you a little bit, right? Because you're little rivalry. All right, and this we're going to finish with a question from our good friend Brandon Steiner. Like, I read about this. We all know you love music, but what band and song would you choose if you had to leave the planet tomorrow? Who would you bring with you, and what would be the song you'd want them to first play when you drop down on that new planet?
It'd be Caribbean Queen by Billy Ocean. That's the song I say I would take with me if I could only take one song with me. And the reason is, I don't know that it's necessarily my favorite song. It's certainly one of them, but any mood I'm in, I'm always down for a little Caribbean Queen.
Wow. Does the stadium ever play that for you? I mean, maybe they have to listen to this. Come on, we got to.
I don't think so. I love like Hall & Oates and Fleetwood Mac, kind of a yacht rock 80s.
Me too, man. I'm with you.
So,
I'm with you. I can listen to that stuff all day. Well, thank you so much. We're all looking forward to a tremendous upcoming season. Very excited to see baseball again. I know I heard that you might be somewhere in Asbury Park doing something, signing autographs. I don't know.
That ship is sailed. I did that last week.
Oh, so you did that last week. Okay. Well, anyone that wants something signed, we'll hook him up with Brandon. So
Absolutely.
we always know he's around, right?
Brandon's
the collectibles exchange.
Yes.
Everyone's got to go to the collectibles exchange. But thank you so much for doing this. Looking forward to a great season. You're a great man, a great leader. People are going to learn a lot from you whenever they hear from you. So I'm glad I'm going to be able to bring some of that to my audience. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Appreciate it, Jonathan. Take care. We'll see you down the road.
All right. I'll see you soon.
All right,
Take
bud.
care.
See you, bud.
All right, man.